Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Family Sedan channel. What I'm going to cover in this video, it's actually been developing over the last few days or so, and I thought about covering it, but I really honestly just didn't want to because it has to do with Max Keiser. Bitcoin maximalist Max Keiser. And not that it wouldn't make for great content, no, it's definitely interesting, but here's the deal. Like, I can't cover everything that pops up. It's literally impossible. There's no way I could even almost touch everything, even having to do with XRP on a daily basis. I'm telling you, if you don't believe me, try doing it. Start a YouTube channel, try doing it. You're not going to be able to. It's a fool's errand. So there's that. But then on top of that, I really just have not been in the mood to talk about this clown. But I'm going to today, and I'll tell you why I'm going to today. It's because Max Keiser, he actually began talking to attorney John Deaton, and that did catch my interest. That definitely caught my interest. Now, this particular guy, I do think he's a clown. He's a Bitcoin maximalist. I do not believe for a moment that he's being intellectually honest in many of the things that he says. I think that he is one of these people I've been describing recently where it's like, here's what he wants to be true, here's his end goal, and he will say whatever he needs to say to convince anyone on the planet that what he's saying is true, even if the arguments he has to make to convince people aren't actually true. It's in his interest. He's got heavy Bitcoin bags, I'm sure, so there you go. And so I've talked about him on and off over the years because he just says the most outrageous, stupid things about XRP, just complete and utter nonsense to just drive towards, to try and convince people Bitcoin. It just gets into this thing where it just starts to sound like some sort of culty type thing where it's just, you must believe the thing. It rubs me the wrong way. But in this case, since there was a back and forth today, having to do with attorney John Deaton engaging with Max Keiser, I'm going to share with you what was said. And it resulted in attorney Deaton stating explicitly, quote, "The SEC can't kill XRP," end quote. And I'm going to give you full context for this. I got to do this in order so the most recent comments are going to be in the later part of the video. But it's like always with Max Keiser, it's a doozy. Buckle up, you can pause here if you want to like get all comfy and get your poppy corn, kick up your feet on the desk, wiggle your toesy woesy. Get comfy, girl. It's gonna be fun. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And just to give you a little taste of some of the headlines that have been brought up in the past, I've probably covered some of this too. Like, look at this from October of last year. From You Today, XRP community riled up by Bitcoiner Max Keiser's comments on SEC lawsuit. Or this one, December 14th of last year, American broadcaster and Bitcoin maxi, Max Keiser, says XRP is a security. But you can pick there's no shortage of headlines in crypto media. You can go back almost to the beginning of XRP's existence. You can find Max Keiser saying nonsense about it. And I'll tell you, when I jumped into crypto in late 2017, or maybe it could have been early 2018. I remember coming across Max Keiser, and at some point very early on, I remember, it probably literally was about half a decade ago when I was still learning a whole lot about crypto, my earlier point in time being active in crypto. I remember coming across a YouTube video. It was a debate between Max Keiser and Peter Schiff. And Peter Schiff, of course, if you know who he is, and I'm sure most of you do at this point, he's very anti-Bitcoin, and I think he's very, very wrong about that. But then you had Max Keiser debating on whether or not Bitcoin makes sense, and even back then, Peter Schiff was saying the same stuff he's saying today. Bitcoin's going to eventually go to zero. It's just, crypto's going to zero, the whole thing. And so I was watching this debate, and although I certainly think Peter Schiff was wrong, and I thought he was wrong then, of course, Max Keiser, he just what an emotional clown. He can't control his emotions. He disagrees so much he couldn't put forth in many instances a logical, coherent argument. What he'd do is he'd get so flustered by what Peter Schiff was saying, he'd stand up on stage in front of all these people, he'd start waving his hands around, raising his voice, getting all emotional about stuff, and that's supposed to be persuasive. No. Max Keiser, that's ridiculous. That is not how you formulate a persuasive argument. That is not intellectual. It's incoherent jibber-jabber nonsense. That's what he was doing. So this is the type of human that we are dealing with, just to kind of set the table in case you're not familiar with this particular guy. And he just lies to his followers. He's got. I didn't check today, but I remember checking a long time ago, and he had over 500,000 followers on Twitter. I mean, he's very well known. He's been in crypto from the very beginning, pretty much. And so here's the headline from a couple days ago. Kaiser says Ripple SEC lawsuit aimed at killing XRP. And it's covering this tweet from him. And what's interesting is, even people that I think are intellectually dishonest, you can find some overlap in terms of interest. And for instance, even if there's somebody they find absolutely repulsive on a number of levels, maybe we both like dogs. Yeah, there can be some overlap. So there's some overlap right here in part of what he tweeted out. And so here's what Max Kaiser tweeted out on June 20th. And that led up to what we ended up having today with the interaction between him and John Deaton, which I promise I will get to. So Max Kaiser said, as I keep telling you guys, the SEC swept away the independent crypto exchanges and players to make room for BlackRock, WisdomTree, Fidelity, etc. to get into Bitcoin. So let's pause right there. That is a narrative that I find quite plausible. And I've been talking about this. So I'll assume that most of you are aware BlackRock filed for a spot Bitcoin ETF just the other day. It's gigantic news. I think it's going to be fantastic for crypto. Even if you hate BlackRock, totally reasonable. That's fine. I'm not getting into that in this particular video. But in terms of is that good for crypto? Yes, more money flow in, so yes in that way, but it's still repulsive because the SEC's been attacking all these other firms. They shot down Grayscale when they were going for their spot Bitcoin ETF. Now Grayscale's suing the SEC currently, and then BlackRock files, and the assumption is that BlackRock is going to get approved because they're BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager. Something like $10 trillion in assets under management. So that narrative sounds plausible. It does. I mean, Attorney Deaton's been talking about this literally for years. There's no shortage of tweets along these lines from Attorney Deaton. I think it makes sense, and you can see it. You can actually see it play out. You know, I don't. It's not like don't believe your lying eyes. We can see it though. I don't think my eyes are lying, right? But he then says XRP ain't gonna win their case. Got to pause right there already. XRP is not a sentient being. XRP is not being sued. XRP is not suing anyone. It's not participating in a court case in any sort of way that you would expect from a sentient creature that could, or people that represent an entity, like Ripple, for example. So he'll still do this thing where he conflates Ripple and XRP as if they're the same thing. He does that. He knows it's not true, but he does it anyway. Even that makes it very difficult to trust a person. That's just one of the minor, more surface level things that he does that's wrong, that he knows is wrong, that he's happy to continue doing wrong, at the expense of confusion of his followers. That's the type of person we're dealing with. So he says, XRP ain't going to win their case. This was never about the law. XRP was marked for death, and Gary's job is to take it out. In El Salvador, we just got rid of all this nonsense with a new law that says Bitcoin is money. Everything else is an unregistered security. We're building Bitcoin country. And so it is true that El Salvador recognizes both the United States dollar and Bitcoin as legal tender. Those are the two currencies that are recognized as legal tender in El Salvador. Now, as far as this idea of calling everything else, without any sort of additional analysis and unregistered security, that sounds made up to me. If that's true, somebody point it to me. I'll admit I'm not the most on top of El Salvador's, legal status when it comes to crypto or finance in general. That sounds like completely like baloney, though. And part of the reason that I'm saying that is because I know that Spin the Bits, which utilizes the XRP ledger to move Bitcoin, so you can actually spin Bitcoin since you can't do that on layer 1. It basically uses the XRP ledger effectively as a layer 2. Of course, the XRP ledger is layer 1, but I'm just saying it effectively uses it as though it were a layer 2 technology to move Bitcoin, because you can tokenize any asset you want under the sun on the XRP ledger. So Spin the Bits is doing that, and they're expanding to El Salvador. So in order to move Bitcoin with Spin the Bits in El Salvador, you need XRP, which is a different cryptocurrency. So if that's an unregistered security, well, does that mean that you just registered then? Can you register and have it as a... But see, here's the truth. I'm probably getting too much in the weeds with his comments because he typically will say, very frequently anyway, things that just literally don't make... It's just things. He'll just spout them out. And I can just imagine when he's typing, just after he finishes typing, he's just flailing his arms around and he's getting all excited about it because that's the type of temperament that he has. So there was a story written about that, and it was shared by XRP community member Wilbur54XRP. And this guy wrote, I cannot emphasize enough how important Max Kaiser's interview vindicates John Deaton and the XRP community, who have always believed the lawsuit against Ripple was willful. And attorney John Deaton retweeted that on June 21st, and he said, I might have to take a trip to El Salvador, visit Bitcoin Island, and buy Max Kaiser a drink now that we agree on something. And he did he tagged Max Kaiser on that. And just to be clear, I'm not going to put words in John Deaton's mouth, but I'm going to speculate that when he's agreeing with Max Kaiser, it's not on the second half of this tweet that I just showed you. The part about everything else is security, I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb here and speculate that Attorney Deaton is not agreeing with that. He's agreeing with the part about making room for the incumbents. That's what I'm talking. And then even if you want to, maybe agrees about the Gary taking out XRP thing. I don't know. But anyway, so John Deaton, he retweeted that. And then that was retweeted by Attorney Bill Morgan. And David Schwartz ended up jumping in, but Attorney Bill Morgan said, the problem is that Kaiser celebrates and applauds the SEC for this because, in his view, it is good for Bitcoin. Now, that is spot on. And it's one of the things that I find absolutely just unforgivable. Just the approach that Kaiser's taking, crap on everything else, as long as it means that his heavy bags become worth way more in the future, and it's just Bitcoin, and forget technological advancement. We already have it. It's pristine. Got it in 2009. You can't improve upon it. It's Bitcoin. All that nonsense. All that crap. Come on. So he's not acting in good faith. He just isn't. So I agree with Attorney Morgan's statement there. Now, David Schwartz jumped in here, and he said the following. Just as government suppressing Bitcoin might be good for incumbent banks and non-bank financial institutions, and it's selfish and despicable, but you can't deny its effectiveness. Totally fair. Because isn't there a certain parallel there? If it is indeed the case, and I think it's perfectly plausible speculation that Gary Gensler and other powers that be are hammering the existing crypto community that's been around for over a decade, and those participants, a lot of them pioneering in the space, just screwing them over, and then suddenly BlackRock and all the financial incumbents, they come in. Well, if that's indeed happening, the idea of suppressing other altcoins just so that Bitcoin can thrive, that's the same that's the same approach, and it's despicable either way. And how can Max Kaiser not see this? Well, I think he's aware of it. I just think that in terms of ethics, he doesn't care. He just doesn't care. What else could it be? Because he's not making logical arguments. He doesn't like to argue facts. Like he wouldn't want to get into some sort of tech argument about Bitcoin versus XRP and the nature of decentralization and utility. He just wants to say that XRP is actually Ripple and it's a Ponzi scheme. That's what he wants. He just wants to say stuff. This is not an intellectually honest human. And then David Schwartz said, I suppose his defense will be that he really and truly believes that Bitcoin is good for people. So it's okay for him to advocate forcing his judgment on others. But of course, Bitcoin's critics will say the same thing. They may even believe it. It's still cynical paternalism. Now that is spot on. And so that must be the way, because I've wondered this too, and you can't get in the hearts and minds of these people, but I do wonder. Someone like a Max Kaiser type, what the hell is going through his head here? It's okay to spout these lies, and he has to know that so much of what he's saying is lies. He has to know that. Because I don't think he's stupid. So he's just justifying it because it's like the ends justify the means and crap on everything. But you see, in the process, what you're doing is, if he had his way, snap of a finger, right? Shut down all innovation. It's just Bitcoin. That's awful for the world. And so if he believes that's good for the world, maybe that explains it. But he's still wrong. And then Attorney Deaton responded to David Schwartz here, and he said, what is inconsistent is that so many Bitcoin maxis fancy themselves libertarians and then applaud or celebrate the massive and gross overreach by the SEC. And he's got a facepalm emoji. Now, that is absolutely correct as well. Max Kaiser, my understanding is that he does put himself somewhere in that category. Libertarian, and if it's not that, it's somewhere definitely over there. But he's certainly not, conducting himself as though that's true, because what he's saying right here is not consistent at all with libertarianism, if that's what he is. It's not even close. And I do think that Attorney Deaton's right there. My understanding has always been that he considers himself to be more on the libertarian side. Well, what is this? Libertarianism, except for when, that would impact your heavy Bitcoin bags? Is that how this works, Max Kaiser? Is that how this works? So that leads us to today, because what I just shared with you was actually retweeted by Max Kaiser himself. He retweeted Attorney John Deaton's comment there that I just shared with you, and then he wrote, Bitcoin is uniquely out of reach of regulators. The fact that XRP's fate is arguably in the hands of regulators proves the point, that it's too centralized to survive in the lawless, conflicted environment where the SEC lives. How could he not know that what he's saying is literally not true? Again, I don't think he's stupid. I just don't think he's intellectually honest. I mean, he's a character. This guy's a character. Bitcoin is not out of the reach of regulators. It is absolutely not out of the reach of regulators. Even if you want to say that Bitcoin's not a security, it's still not out of the reach of regulators. Something's going to regulate that. And just to be clear here, the SEC doesn't have an official position on Bitcoin. Do you realize that, Max Keiser? They really don't. And then the idea of XRP's fate being in hands. No. Regulators can have any number of just fallacious arguments from a legal perspective that they want to. They can have any number. They could go after Bitcoin. They could go after any coin they want. The fact that they make a legal assertion doesn't mean that the cryptocurrency at the heart of such an assertion is somehow centralized. In fact, if Ripple ceased to exist, Ripple goes completely out of business. XRP continues to go on. Obviously true. Unquestionably true. And he has to know this. I don't believe that he doesn't know this. I think he's a liar. I actually think he's a liar. I really firmly, I don't say that lightheartedly. I don't say that about most humans. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I did for him at first too. But I've been following him for long enough to know that this guy is a clown and he is a liar. That is absolutely true. And he's it's disgusting because so many people follow him. Here, let's look how many followers now. 527,000 followers on Twitter. He's spouting this crap to them. And there's so many coins, not every person is going to look into every coin. They're probably just going to trust him if they trust him for other reasons and then just suppose that what he's saying about XRP is true. Well, that's not helpful. That's harmful. You're misleading them. That's not right. That's not right to do. You don't have to like XRP, but don't lie about it. You could have any number of valid criticisms, and I just respectfully disagree. This is on a different level, though. I don't like it. I don't respect it. It's garbage. Don't do it. You're being a bad person. Can you tell that burns my biscuits, son? So that's what he said. Now, Attorney Deaton had a perfect response to this. He wrote to Keiser and he said, Max, the SEC can't kill XRP. I'm sure you're aware that in 2013 through 2015, some people at the SEC were calling Bitcoin a security, which is insane. Below is a video of Joe Grunfest in 2015 discussing it. Don't get me wrong, the SEC can and has caused damage, i.e. dry up liquidity, and can scare some to delist. But a transient regulator like Gensler will be gone in 2 years. Software code is not a security. Even if the judge decides Ripple violated Section 5 at some point, that doesn't make XRP a security. I'm sure you've seen how ETH was favored because of regulatory capture by a group of investors. That's your SEC at work. A level playing field with the best technologies winning is the America I want to live in. Spot on. And so you'll notice, and there hasn't been a response from Max at the time that I'm recording this. I don't know that there will be. And if he does, it won't be on substance. Do you think that Max Keiser can come back to Attorney John Deaton and argue pretty much anything in here? Do you think that he's going to come back to the point where Attorney Deaton said, software code is not a security? What is Max Keiser going to come back and calmly articulate why software code actually is a security? Is he going to do that? I don't think so. Because he's making up gobbledygook nonsense. And he knows it. So he'll say this stuff, he'll throw these bombs, and then when called out, he typically will just have a snide remark or just shuts up, and he frequently blocks people. That's typically what he does. Maybe the only reason he hasn't blocked John Deaton to this point is because he recognized that John Deaton's such a large account. Maybe he thinks it's good for traffic or this. I don't know. I can't get in his head here. Sounds like a scary place anyway. And the link that he was talking about, John Deaton was talking about, was this. This is a video from 7 years ago, Stanford Law School, and it's titled Faculty on Point, Professor Joseph A. Grunfest on Bitcoin. Is it a security? 7 years ago, folks. Now, Joseph Grunfest, he was for several years a SEC commissioner, and his perspective here actually wasn't that crazy. He actually, to be fair, he wasn't saying in all cases that Bitcoin was a security or this or that. He actually, one of his more prominent points, if you watch this video, which I'd seen before, I watched it again before recording this, he points out that the law hasn't caught up with what it means for if you're purchasing Bitcoin, for instance, on an exchange. Because he pointed out, the SEC, they could argue that it satisfies the Howey test because you got an investment of money if you buy crypto on an exchange, expectation of profit, and then on the efforts of others, well, those would be the Bitcoin miners. And so, what he noted in stating that is that the law hasn't determined that yet. And here we are 7 years later, the law still hasn't determined that. We just haven't seen the SEC go after Bitcoin, and I don't think they will. I think that would be crazy. But the point is you can make those arguments. So just the fact that you can make that argument, and in this case, the SEC just went after Ripple and made all sorts of weird, wacky assertions about XRP, that does not mean it is a security because an assertion was made by a government agency. What kind of libertarian are you, Max? If you say you're a libertarian, what kind of libertarian are you saying this stuff? The government asserts something, therefore it's true? See, but again, I don't think he believes this. I don't. I think he knows more about XRP than he's letting on, and he's just saying stuff. Because otherwise, if he's operating in good faith for this long with that many followers, why would he, even if he believed it in good faith sometime in the past, after this much time passing, how could he not have informed himself? But he keeps speaking with such confidence, undeserved confidence about XRP. It steams my vegetables, son. And so that's where we're at right now. If there's another update, I'll let you know. Probably. I don't enjoy speaking about max highs. I've done it before. I can do it. I know it's interesting content. I got it. I'm so tired. I'm currently so tired. Maybe if I have big enough gaps between when I have to have him pop up on my Twitter feed, then maybe that would help a bit. I don't know. This guy, he is not to be taken seriously, but some people take him seriously. It's a joke. All right, I'm going to go simmer down now. I'm going to go calm down. You guys tell me what you think, though, but that's where I'm coming through from. And so Attorney John Deaton is absolutely correct. And, I'm still will, despite my feelings about this, I'll still happily from time to time make content like this because I do want the word to get out. If people are being intellectually dishonest and misleading people and saying garbage crap about XRP, yes, I want to call that out. That's what I've done here. I'll continue to do so. It's just annoying sometimes. Like the same stupid ass arguments that some of which I encountered back in 2017 are still getting spouted by this clown. Come on. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family Sedan.